What's going on, everybody? It's Krusty Old Crow coming at you from Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, here in December. And this is the usual view I think you guys expect us Canadians to provide you, so I'm going to provide it for you today. Would love to get some photos of Snow Job today, but she's just a bit too cold, y'all. So, what are we going to do today? Well, aside from saying hello from up north and complaining about a postal strike that keeps me from sending mail out or getting any, we're going to talk about Jada Street Fighter 2. Oh, man. I really like that series. You know, I didn't think I'd like it as much as I did, so we're going to do a good, the bad, the ugly on it. And this is going to be one where I'm kind of struggling to find some negative things to say. So let's see if I have any observations about these figures. And feel free to hit me up in the comments whether you're collecting that series or not and what your impressions are of Jada Street Fighter 2. But anyways, let's get inside where it's warm and let's get on to this. Back inside where it's warm. Hey, how you doing? You guys are looking good. Did you lose weight? You lost weight. Don't tell me you didn't. All right. You're doing something different with your hair. I like that. I like that a lot. All right. Hey, guys. Street Fighter. Yeah, that's what we're doing today. Okay. So Good, Bad, Ugly on Street Fighter by Jada Toys. This was something that it took me a while to get on board and start collecting this. It started with Fei Long when I saw him, and I remembered using him as a kid in the arcade. And I followed it up with a Violent Ken that impressed me when I got it home. I did a couple of little vids that featured these guys, just some opinions on that, but they weren't the good, the bad, the ugly. And when it's the good, the bad, the ugly, 2 is the minimum I'll use to get an impression of a line. But the more the merrier. So this time, because I really do like the Jada Street Fighter figures, I've decided I am going to collect them. More than other lines. Perhaps not as religiously as I collect G.I. Joe Classified and Retro, but I am going to collect this line with a certain degree of dedication because it does make me happy collecting these. These do take me back in a nostalgic place to a happier childhood where I would go to the arcade with my friends and we'd fight each other in Street Fighter, or when Home Game Systems had it and we would go to each other's places and just spend a good Saturday afternoon just kicking the daylights out of each other with our favorite characters. All right, and if you guys remember that, you remember, hit it up in the comments. But on this Good, the Bad, the Ugly, I can't just leave it at these 2. I had to go get a couple more. So we're gonna add my impressions of Chun-Li in there, one of my favorites to use in the video game, and one of my favorites in the line right now. And then we'll also add in some impressions of Dalzim and Bison, who I also picked up. And all of that together at 5 figs gave me enough to do a good, the bad, the ugly on. So if you guys like these sorts of videos, don't forget to like, to share, to subscribe. That really helps me out. That helps the algorithm, and that more than anything. It'll feel good when we get to 1,000. I'm sure it'll definitely feel good for me. I hope it'll feel good for you, but that's the goal this year, is by this time next year, I'd like to be within inches of 1,000 subscribers. So I'll try and earn that from you. But in return, if you guys wouldn't mind hitting that like, I would really appreciate it. All right, so let's flip the camera over. Let's just have some fun playing with these guys, and I'll tell you what I did perceive as good, bad, or ugly about this line. Thanks. So this good, bad, the ugly, we're going to start with the good. And the very first good thing I'm going to say is Jada took boxing lessons, guys. This is how you box a nostalgic 6-inch figures to captivate your audience and get them Thinking back to the good old days where they first met these characters, and that is soon to separate me from my money every time if you do an effective job with that. Looking at these boxes, you can see they're fashioned after an old style arcade game, but you can see just a couple of lines of information about each character on them. The wave releases a mystery at the end, some familiar faces in the characters, and then a full blown diagram of what your character is supposed to look like as a per digital render. Jada really made the most out of the use of the box space. The legal gobbledygook stuck down to the side. A little bit of fan art, not much individual art, but the best part about it is the backgrounds, for which you'll notice each character has a different background that harkens back to the original Street Fighter games on Sega or wherever you were playing them as you learned about them. So you could pose your figures individually as you see me doing here. I'm going to be doing a failed attempt at keeping Chun-Li's splits intact, but you can see she's too wide in the splits there. So I'll sadly settle and decide to change the pose there. But you can see if you take these out of the boxes and put them on maybe a little cubby IKEA shelf, stacking these left to right or across would give you some pretty self-contained backgrounds for your characters. All that in a great box with a big plastic window and not a whole lot of piece count to keep track of. These things are very limited, and I'll be talking about that in the second points. But yes, definitely some great individual backgrounds for these things that take you back to the old Capcom games. And I bet you're wondering, well, they're small. They're small. They're great for one character, but you'd have to double down. It just doesn't look like very accommodating for two characters. And you'd be right. And that's why every now and then Jada will produce another line of these in a bigger box that will accompany more. And you'll see with my Violent Ken here. And in these things, you'll get a little bit of extra kit on top of a different kind of paint on the character. But they come in a much bigger box. And with that bigger box, of course, comes a bigger background. So now maybe I can pose two figures fighting. No problems there. We'll just get Chun-Li out of the way. And you can see where that's starting to go. Of course, the Violent Ken set did come with the barrels. And there's the barrels drawn in the right corner of the set. So you can see that we can use this set for pretty much everything and anything we did in the Street Fighter series as we played that when we were kids or played now. My second good point on this is basically just the low piece count. You can see everything you're getting in the window of the box, and you can count it easily. There's no unnecessary kit included in these things. You buy a bigger set like Violent Ken, you get some more features from the game to add to your set, but not necessarily more pieces. Maybe a couple of extra heads. But the overall direct over-the-counter renditions of these characters merely come with an extra set of hands and perhaps an extra head sculpt, and very little on top of that besides the blast effects and a stand for the blast effects. If that character was known for a special move that required a special blast effect, you'll often find them included in these sets. And these low piece counts mean, like I said, no wastage, no unnecessary repetition, because it seems like these pieces are very much tailored for the characters that they accompany, right? You're not going to get a repeat of everybody's same gun or same knife or same vest, because these characters are tailored to fit, as is their kit. So hands, heads, and a small base for a blast effect accessory if the character demands one. And we'll keep that on the good list, although that same blast effect and stand shows up again later as part of the bad or the ugly. But you know what? We keep repeating with it as we talk about more of the good. And that's that all the pieces are relative. If you look at Ken's hands here, these the hands are synonymous with being able to do the same moves you did when you fired the blast effects and whatnot. So like I said before, those piece counts are one thing, but the fact that all the kit is very relevant to the game and the character. And again, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of repetition for blast effects and the unique pieces they add to these characters. It really seems like it's all relative, no waste at all, and important to the character development, which is the best part. This will take us to our fourth point. When I say that there's no waste, it's definitely what you get is what you deserve at the price you're paying for these. Violent Ken was about $10 more, but came with much more better accessories and everything. But your standard one, your standard Jada Street Fighter character like Bison or Dulzum or Chun Li or Fei Long, they run about $29.99 here in Canada at your local Walmart or GameStop. So I imagine that's somewhere around the 20 or less dollar mark for the US. And for what you get with this figure and the plastics they're using and the craftsmanship, I think you are more than getting your dollars amount. It feels like I'm getting a fistful of my quarters back that I invested in this game back in the 80s going to the arcade. It's a good return, and the price feels absolutely right. This next point about textures and paying respect to the original concepts, it feels like two separate points all crammed into the same thing. Video game art rendering was hard to make out for what they wanted to do until the graphics got better over the years. These textures that they're applying to the fabrics of these characters, using the plastics that they do, they have a rubberiness as on top of the plastic feel. It's a very nice texture to feel in your hand, and yet it feels pliable and sturdy to the touch and to the use. There are some characters where you have to, pull hands out or arms and legs out, like with Dalzium, and this stuff feels sturdy. And you'll notice they did nothing to change the looks of these characters aside from what you were used to. The best they do is these different lighting takes in player 1, player 2 variants. This line definitely is paying the right amount of respects to its original concepts that worked so well by not changing a damn thing, and it looks great. Or at least for the most part it does. We're going to get out of the 5 good points, and believe me, I could keep going, and we're going to move into the next points, which are the bad ones, and see how many I came up with. I'm going to tell you right now, not a lot. This is an actually really good line as I see it. But I didn't call this the good and done. I called it the good, the bad, and the ugly. So I'll give you one, and it's going to be about this misuse of stands. While they use the stand effectively, what one they include for the blast effects, I feel they need to take that step further, and unfortunately it would mean increasing the cost a bit. But they need a more dynamic stand than what is provided with these sets. Currently, what you get is a small elbow and neck joint on a single base, as you saw with the Ken Blast effect earlier. It's the same one that's supposed to work on Chun-Li's leg. It's now on here, it's rammed right up Ken's ass because there's no place to put that to actually use it to elevate a character. And considering the number of fighting moves that the Street Fighter roster have that involve leaping through the air, I feel it's a mistake not to give them a stand that not only works for using the blast effects, but perhaps elevating the character in the air a bit. And I don't know if they can find a simple way to do that, but that's really the only bad I have on this one. Because, guys, the martial arts moves and the bouncing around through the air, changing directions midair, dropping things from high above, picking people up and slamming them down, that's all Street Fighter. But if you can't keep that figure in the air with the stand, that's limiting you, especially when you have the backgrounds for the video game itself as your backdrop from the box. Yeah, you know what? I'm just going to beat this dead horse right here a few more times and say it's also about the balancing the figures. Look, we're not talking about G.I. Joe here where they're at war on mountains, snow tops, driving vehicles, all sorts of stuff. And we're not talking about Motu where they're casting spells and riding battle cats. These guys are here to fight one-on-one, mano a mano. So we go back to, well, wouldn't you like them to be able to do all the poses and all the jumping through the air poses? Again, yes, is it about the lack of a stand to give them that ability, or perhaps maybe a misused stand that should have been a little bit more enabling? Absolutely, because once again, The only story these guys are here to tell is the story of fighting each other and beating the crap out of each other. It's an important story, but it's the only one they got, so I feel like they get copped out. So I'm doubling down on the stand as a bad thing for two reasons, and then I'm walking away from the bad, and we're gonna roll right into the ugly. And just like there's not a whole lot of bad, there's not a whole lot of ugly when it comes to Jada's Ultra Street Fighter 2 toy line either. Not every great idea works out, and I'm showing you one where great ideas came to it. Just a masterpiece, and that's Dalzium. Whether it's his facial expressions or his independent earrings, which swing on both head options that he comes with, bracelets. He comes with different arm options. These elasticy, stretchy legs and arms that reattach at the joints for multiple play functions is an example where it worked out really well with this character. It lent a lot of depth to Dalzim in posability, maybe not so much in balance, but just in what he can do, the ranged attacks, and just really spoke to the character he had in the video game line with the long distance strikes, with the punches and the kicks. I have him here featured because I wanted you guys to see where a good idea worked out, replacing these limbs to have them elongated, having a wire, just like the old 1970s posable Gumby figures. That's what's at play here with Dalzim's extra limbs. So you're not only able to show him extending these limbs, you can see that gauntlet or the little bracelets are also a part of those limbs. They're easy to attach, they're easy to bend, they're easy to disconnect, and the old limbs go on without a hassle. And because of the textures of these plastics, I feel like you could keep doing that over and over again and not break the figure, unlike maybe doing things with other figures of other lines like McFarlane's toy lines or with Valiver's or even with Classified. Sometimes that stress can end up breaking the figure. So if I'm going on about how much this really works for the figure, then where does a concept that they pulled with Jada not necessarily work for the figure? And in my opinion, it was when it came to Bison and his cape. I love Bison's cape. I love how posable and flexible it is. The fabric has a wire and it allows you to do a lot of things. And it also comes with instructions on how to remove this cape and replace it with two other shoulder pads, and you can see me able to do this with one hand as I get them done. However, what you'll see is I have a real no problem with this left shoulder as I put the clip back in. It's a forward seat and then push to the rear and it's back, and you just disconnect them in the opposite direction. What I did find though was the other shoulder was a real pain. The right shoulder, it kept popping off. And it's because it uses a pressure clip system to hold itself into place. And that pressure, I find, slips off a lot, which causes the shoulder pad to launch off. I've only noticed it with Bison's right shoulder pad, not so much with the left, and not with the cloak versions of the shoulder pads that you can change it in with. So I prefer my Bison cloak the way it is. But it's an example where not every innovative idea really worked out for the character. And it more goes to show you just how well done this line is when I'm nitpicking the little things here. You can see that clip did end up holding in place, but what it does is it contributes to a problem posing Bison sometimes, where I want him to be cranking his arm. Maybe I don't want the cloak on there. I'm constantly going to have to deal with that one pressure plate. So that's that ugly. And the only other ugly I can say is this one's for you conversion guys that like to do kit bashes with other lines, get different head sculpts on other figures. Yeah, you might be able to work some of these conversion some of these pieces into other figures. The heads, I'm thinking, do some head swaps, maybe a bit of kit bashing if you really want to. But the heads for a Street Fighter character are their own unique faces and expressions. And this is the ugly part of it too. Some of these are phenomenal, like Chun-Li's striking face, Ken Lee's laughing anger, or angry face, or the possessed demonic face of Ken. Dalzim has a great face sculpt. And then other characters, as you'll see, their head sculpts kind of don't show much difference. Fei Long is one where I'm like, he looks bored with either head sculpt no matter what. He just does not look much different between the two face sculpts that they provide him with. And some face sculpts I find don't work at all for the character. And for that one, I come back to, M. Bison again. I feel like his face sculpt didn't really work for his character, but the stoic one where he's not as angry, I found worked a little bit better. But again, I'm nitpicking, right? The face sculpts we got on a lot of these, I thought were phenomenal. Here's one of my favorites right here. I love Dalzim's both face sculpts they gave him, and again, Chun-Li, Ken, all of them. And as we get going, I know I've seen Cammy, I've seen Guile, and I've seen DJ, and I feel like some of those head sculpts are going to be good as well. But as far as interswapability with other lines, I think conversion artists are going to have a hard time using these figures for anything more than as Street Fighter 2 displays. I guess the last ugly I should be stating is just Walmart, guys. These things have a contract that sees them occupying shelves at Walmart. I am starting to see them at GameStop now, finally, but for quite a while, even Toys R Us wasn't carrying them out here. I was not finding these anywhere but Walmart. And Walmart was not putting them out with any kind of due diligence or wide selection. Fei Long and M. Bison were the two that sat on the shelf the longest out here in the region, and it was almost like nobody was buying them because they were stashed away amongst other video game characters like Sonic the Hedgehog and Minecraft. And I don't know if people were even aware of them. But it's a great line, and I hope being a Walmart product does not diminish it in any way as far as availability or its appeal to collect. These are on the shelf and not necessarily just a part of the ordering catalog. However, I would say just go through GameStop. They are starting to get these more and more abundantly, or just order them online and have no problems, as I've done with Guile, DJ, and Cammy as well. And that's really going to be about it for the good, the bad, the ugly today on this Jada Ultra Street Fighter 2 toy line that I've decided is the next shit I'm going to collect because it's pretty damn cool. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'm going to play us out with the unused footage just to kill some time. Have a good one, guys, and we'll see you again.